Welcome to Wired to Hunt's Rut Fresh Radio, bringing you the latest reports from the Whitetail Woods. And now, your hosts, Casey Smith and Tyler Jones.
This is Rut Fresh Radio, powered by Vortex Optics. I'm your host, Tyler Jones, and this week we're hearing from many guys who say the warm temperatures have affected rut movement, but there's a cold front on the horizon, and it's giving us hope. This is a Rut Fresh Radio podcast brought to you by Vortex Optics. I'm your host, Tyler Jones, and I've got in the passenger seat right here, hanging out the passenger side,
Casey Smith.
Oh, he's just hanging out right here with me. We've been hunting this morning.
Dude,
it's warm.
Look at all these used broadheads on your dash.
Yeah.
You have a collection building
up. I've got a few, man. I've liked to shoot. Well, that one, what did I hit with that one? Goodness.
I know what you hit with that one.
Explode. Oh, dadgummit. We talked about that one already on this podcast. South Dakota, yep. There's some with dirt or some that are blown up. I did hit a very big buck on the hardest bone in his body with that. We talked about it. Anyway, we've got some pretty cool fellers on this podcast this week. So we're going to be hearing from them in a second about what to expect in the second week of the rut. But as of right now, KC, we had a pretty good first week, didn't we?
We sure enough did, man. And, you know, honestly, it wasn't all that ruddy, but it was a good first week of November.
Yeah.
I suppose you and I both killed bucks. I suppose that happened. You suppose that happened?
I suppose. I do suppose.
They're both really nice deer.
Toads.
Very exciting. So we hunted Kansas the first week of November, and
1 week.
One week, and actually 5 days in November.
5 days. Yeah.
So let's just go ahead and kind of set the stage here. We head up because November is just like the month, right?
Yeah.
It's the month that we all like want to do this thing. So November 1st, you probably need to be hunting. And even though like I really think like the 4th is when like it's really like starting to do the thing, right? But we get there for the 1st to hunt and kind of like making our plans, but we always like kind of show up with like a 48-hour type mentality. Like there's just the odds of you shooting deer on the first night are just so low, right, Tyler?
Yeah, they sure are. They sure are. I talked about this in the post that I made, but Mr. December is what my name is. That's what my dad calls me, at least. And it's because I'm always like running around chasing a deer in late December usually, or in December, trying to find some, there's some old 8-year-old with 8 or less points that's like 9 years old, and I've got to find out, how to shoot this deer and what pattern he's on late season, which I actually do like late season a lot. I've had some pretty good success there.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it's pretty, it's a pretty odd thing to be trying to tag out on the first afternoon, but we get up there and roll into a stand, and me and Eric are just sitting there, and it's sunny, kind of warm, very windy, and I play a game. I play solitaire on my phone until I win. Okay, so it's early. You know what I mean? Give me a break here. November 1st, early in the day, playing solitaire. I finally win a game after a couple.
That's why we call you Peepaw.
That's it. And then I go into my Bible app and read Hosea. No, actually, I finished Daniel and then went into Hosea, and I'm like 2 chapters in, and Eric goes, "There's a buck." I was like, "Oh gosh!" Like it's early, and I'm like, I don't move. I'm like, "How far?" He goes, 50. He's like, "He's not a shooter." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll just look up." And so I look up and I see him. It's windy too, so I wasn't too worried about getting seen. Well, he's like maybe like a Pope and Young type. Like he's pretty solid, Like Eric just called him a not shooter real quick.
But this is a place that's pretty special, right?
Yeah,
this is
sure
not
is.
your just average public land property. This is a piece of permission that you've hunted for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And so anyway, we watch this buck, comes down, makes a scrape. We get video of that. It's cool, man. It's cool. You are going to be able to see this here in the next few months, I'm sure.
Do you need to give all the details, or should folks go check out the Element podcast?
They definitely can check out the Element podcast. But this deer comes down and he makes a scrape, and it's awesome. And he goes in front of us, and basically gets kind of weird, and then things happen. but I can't tell you how it happens.
Exciting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a good night. I did end up shooting a buck, and you can check out our Instagram to see that buck. We posted probably on the 2nd or 3rd or something like that. And then a few days go by, you're not feeling very well. You're very, very negative for a KC Smith.
I was mentally defeated at one point in time because there's just not a ton of public ground around our area that we hunt, but there's a couple good places, and when the wind's bad, for that, you're just like toast. And I was feeling like that. And like the projected forecast was that way for a few days. So I was like, I'm out. I have no way. And then we just start working the phones, calling landowners, and Tyler just pulls one out, man. And it's awesome. An awesome piece of permission that we get. And we go truck scout this thing in the buck truck, driving around, decide to hang a camera. And then while we're out hanging a camera, I get that tingle that you don't want down. You know, like,
it ain't a rut tingle.
It ain't a rut tingle.
Neck ain't swelling or nothing.
And from there on, like, I had the stomach virus for about 10 hours or so.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It was rough.
Yeah. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
So we'll say that. But yeah,
Then
there's some pretty cool things that happened on that trip for sure.
The next morning, there's some really cool things that happened, and we will just leave it at that.
That's right.
But you can go check out some of our feed stuff to see maybe what's going on, and if you want the full story on that. But guys, it's happening right now. It's time to be excited. Big bucks are hitting the ground all over the country with people that are good hunting, bad hunting, don't matter, man. Just get out there and hunt. You know, if you feel like you're a bad hunter, hunt right now because it's time, dude. It's time to go. Right now, we
actually almost killed a buck last night on public.
You almost did.
Yeah. You rattled them in for me.
Yeah.
How about that?
The calling's working right now, by the way. I think that if you're going to bust out rattling antlers, if you're going to bust out grunt calls, right now is the time to do it. I absolutely love it, man. It's fun. Get in a place maybe you can see a little ways. You know, the way I am, I really don't like to blind rattle all that much. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but you get surprised by deer, and then you have to make a quick decision on if it's a shooter and all that kind of stuff. But, like, if you can get eyes on a buck, this is a Bill Winke thing, right? If you can get eyes on a buck and call to a buck you see, your odds are really good of that going well for you. And that's what we did last night. We saw the buck, called to him, and brought him in close to you. You just didn't get a good shot at him. He was kind of far. So
we had a public land hunter help us out.
We did,
didn't we?
Help is interesting how that works.
So we'll talk about that on the podcast, on our Element podcast too. Just give you a little bigger story there. But this week we've got some guys that are going to be talking about what to expect in the next week, whether it's calling like KC said, or just plain sitting in a funnel pinch, whatever you want to call it. This next week is going to be a great week, I think, across the country. Everything is ready to pop, and the weather, I think, is going to make that thing happen. So this week on the podcast, we've got our friend Brian Bostic, who helps us out quite a bit here at the Element. He's got a Texas report for us. Brian is a great, great shot. He actually is a state champion archer in high school. So you'll hear me poke fun at him, but just know he's an incredible shot. Sam Sohold up in North Dakota, Tyler Friel in Kentucky. This is one of his first times to harvest a deer, which is a pretty cool perspective he's got there. And then we've got our old friend Jared Mills from Iowa, who shoots the biggest, most jealous-worthy deer every year. So that's who we've got on the podcast this week. Anything else we need to talk about here before we get to them?
I'd say we could talk about Mark, but there's really no reason to. So, Mark actually had him pretty good.
He did,
early
man.
November,
he
man.
He did, man. Brasker bucks.
He did, man. He shot him a good deer. So everybody's even the lowliest of hunters right now are killing them, and I'm going to let y'all decide between the three of us who that is. See, I love when he's not on here, because then we can just poke the most fun, you know. But I don't know if y'all know this or not, but Mark's going to come down in December and hunt with us in Texas, and we're going to have
spooky.
a real good time. Yeah. So y'all look forward to that, and look forward to this week, because it's about to go down. Let's get the reports from the guys.
All right, on the phone now, I've got Brian Bostic down in Texas. Hey, can you explain to me the mentality behind purposefully missing a deer?
Well, guys, you have to build some suspense to your story. My excuse, and I'm sticking to it.
I like it.
It's unfortunate, but it did happen yesterday.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yards.
So you must be seeing some movement. Can you tell us about what's been going on in Texas as far as movement there in East Texas lately?
I've been hunting primarily East Texas, and it is happening. I think a couple of these does are starting to come in heat, and the bucks are moving. I have been seeing lots of bucks chasing, lots of rut activity, scrapes. It's my favorite time of the year to be in the woods.
Yeah.
It's been really good.
Yeah. So you're seeing some scrape action, huh?
Scrapes, yep. Here in the last month, all of the oaks have started dropping acorns, so it's kind of spread some of these deer out. But if I can get in an area that has some good scrapes and some good activity, I've seen some really good bucks.
Are you still seeing acorns being an active food source right now?
They, I think, are primary food source right now.
Okay.
I have lots of bait piles out, deer feeders going, and they are avoiding them. But if I can get in a good bottom with some oak trees that are actively dropping acorns, they are on them.
That's cool. So also the moon could possibly play a factor right now. I know it's kind of coming up on a full moon. Is that something you pay too much of attention to?
I not as much as some guys.
You're not a mooner like Hunter is?
No, I'm not. But it does key me in to kind of look at the activity on my cameras a little more.
Yeah.
And you can pattern some of them deer. I have noticed here in the last week that a lot of these deer, it's the rut also, but they're starting to move later in the mornings too. There's been some real good 9 to 10 o'clock activity. So I think some of that does have to do with the moon.
Have you seen any chasing, or is it mostly just cruising in your opinion?
I am seeing some chasing.
Man.
So I think, some of these younger bucks have kind of started playing around with some does, but when you see 3 bucks on a doe, she's probably in heat. And I've seen that a couple of times.
That's exciting. So
yes.
As we are looking at, bucks in that full-on chase mode and deer kind of going everywhere, do you tend to be a guy who wants to stay in the same spot day in and day out and play the probability of a deer coming by, or are you doing hanging hunts and hopping around trying to outsmart them?
I think with these acorns dropping, it has spread a lot of these deer out, so I am having to move around a little more. But some of these areas that I have been feeding these does for the last couple of months, I've noticed that the does stay in the area, and there's been a lot of new bucks move in. So I'm hunting some of those spots that I've been feeding for the last couple of months that are keeping those does around.
Yeah. So with 3 bucks in front of you, you still missed.
It was one, guys. And,
okay.
you know the story. My first deer to ever miss with a bow, and it was at 15 yards. I've seen some deer misses at 15 yards, and I always thought, how can a guy miss at 15 yards? And here I am. I'm one of those
videoing
guys.
your hunts. That's how.
Yep.
you know,
it was. I think it was a good thing. There's bigger bucks in the area. I would have liked to have gotten that buck. But my season's not over, so we only get 1 buck here in East Texas, and if I would have harvested that deer, then it'd put it into my season here in East Texas. So,
well, I say this just because the first time I ever met Brian, it was like I saw that he made a 40-yard heart shot on a frontal 140-pound deer, and he was an archery state champion. So I can say this stuff. If he was just kind of a ho-hum archer, I probably wouldn't be making it so hard on him right now. But with that said, man, all the action you've seen, what does it lead you to think is going to be, where do you need to be next week? What do you need to be hunting? What patterns, what tactics are you using?
I think you guys need to be in the woods. I think here in the next couple of weeks, it's gonna be on fire. I think you're starting to see a couple of does come in heat, but I think in the following weeks, it is really going to fire up.
Gotcha.
I think we have a cold front coming through Friday, and this moon should be diminishing a little bit, and I think the hunting's going to be really good.
Gotcha. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rank buck movement as coming up next week if you had to guess?
I would say currently a 5, next week to a 7.
All right.
I like those numbers.
Dude. Yeah, those are good numbers. Realistic.
It's gonna be really, really good hunting.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks for hopping on the phone with us, Brian, and we'll be talking to you soon, man.
Of course, guys. Y'all be careful.
Okay, now on the phone, I've got Jared Mills. He's a good buddy of ours, and Jared's up in Iowa. He's been hunting a little bit lately. Had some success in October as well. Jared, what's been going on, man?
Not much, guys. It's the light switch has definitely flipped here in Iowa. It was a little bit of a rough go there right at the end of October and first couple of days of November, mostly just weather related, warm and windy and a couple of days of rain. But I'd say 2 to 3 days ago, once that weather moved out of here, it's been full bore. Lots of bucks hitting the ground. I've been out the past couple mornings. Actually, just to get on this call, I just left from taking pictures and helping a guy recover a really good 10 just half hour ago. So
that's cool.
It's definitely on here in Iowa.
That's good. What are the temps like right now?
Right now I think the high is 50 today. So, which is much better than it has been. I think we're going to maybe have one little warm up here midweek, but then after that, it's going to be much more seasonal, highs in the 40s, and you can't get much better than that for early November.
Do you feel like, today, this week is the second week in November, essentially. Do you feel like that warm temps affect the rut much that time of year, or is it just going to be what it is?
I still think it is what it is. I think part of it is the mental grind on our end. It's just not fun sweating in the tree stand. Like, it almost wears on us more than anything. But there are, I think, little factors with regards to the rut that are affected. But in general, they're still going to do their thing. It just maybe subdued a little bit, but I really sometimes think it's harder on us than it is the deer.
So another thing that people like to talk about this time of year outside of weather is the moon. And hunting this morning, walking in, we had a really bright moon hanging in the sky still, up until we were in the tree. And then, it's not going to rise this evening until probably after sunset. How do you think that affects deer movement?
So I've never been a huge, I don't want to say believer, but I definitely know the moon affects movement, but I've never really based hunts off of it. The only thing that I've seen from personal experience is that when we are in and around a full moon, I see better like 10 to 2 movement, like midday type of movement for whatever reason. There's probably multiple factors associated with that too, but in general, I don't change, when I hunt or where I hunt or anything like that based on the actual moon phase. That's just a little observation that I've had over the years is that, when the moon's shining bright all night long, I try to stay in the stand a little bit longer and get in earlier in the afternoon.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me too, man. That's kind of my plan as well. So you mentioned it earlier, but we're going to get that cold front that everybody's looking forward to at the end of this week. How are you going to spend that best day? What's the tactic to go to?
It's just not much different than any other rut, but I want to be in and around bedding areas or travel corridors close to bedding areas. The other thing, when we start to get towards the second week of November and you're having more and more does coming to estrus, which means potentially a little bit less, searching required for some of the bucks. Don't overlook some of the small stuff like small fingers, small woodlots. And the reason for that is a lot of times when these big mature bucks are paired with a doe, those are the areas they're going to be. Very rarely are they going to just be bedded in the main bedding areas throughout the rest of the season. They don't like being near all those other deer. So, I don't have access to a ton of spots like that, a few, but over and over and over again, I see some of the biggest, most mature deer in the neighborhoods get killed in the smallest little pockets. So this, especially during peak breeding, this is a good time to not overlook those spots.
Gotcha. So do you normally associate those little spots with like being adjacent to, good spots that have big cover and stuff like that? Or could it literally be out in the middle of miles of just cut crop?
It could very well be in the middle of nowhere. They just don't want to be harassed by other bucks, and they want to be by themselves. And you'll see here in Iowa, you'll see it just driving around. You'll just drive by a little fence row and you'll see them bedded up against the fence in a spot that you'd never ever see them any other time of the year.
Sure.
Except right now they're out in in a spot like that just to get away from the other deer.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting for the guy who doesn't have any good permission. So with that in mind, going forward this week on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rank your predicted buck movement?
Ooh, I think it's going to be up there. I'll go 8.5.
Ooh,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
good, dude. Dadgummit.
8.5.
That's a good grade, sir.
Yeah. That's better than my college GPA for
I
sure.
guarantee you.
Well, that's awesome, man.
It should be rocking.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you, Jared, for hopping on the phone, and we will talk to you some other time, man.
Yeah, good hearing from you guys. Good luck.
All right, I've got Sam Soholt here on the phone. Sam, you've been up in North Dakota.
I have been, yep.
Yeah, it seems like things have been slow. Is that right?
Yeah, things have been super slow. Typically one of the weeks I look forward to the most is that last 5-6 days of October. And between weather and just, who knows what, it seemed very slow up, for a long time there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
yeah.
What are you normally hunting in late October? Are you hunting scrapes and stuff like that, or what are you looking at?
Yeah, hunting scrapes and rub lines, also hunting transition zones between food and bedding.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time I'm hunting small chunks of public and stuff, so I don't have I can't, get on a big food plot or anything that time of year. So I'm trying to find stuff where I think deer will at least move through on the way to going where they're going, but I haven't caught up with one yet.
Yeah. Can you talk real quick about what you're looking for in a rub line that makes you want to hunt it?
Yeah. So typically I'm trying to figure out what side of the tree the rubs are on so I can get an idea of what direction that deer is moving through. And if it seems like, it's going to be a better morning sit or an evening sit, depending on the direction, I'm going to focus on that rub line, based on what I find from that information.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yep.
So
and then obviously looking for, just at the freshest sign possible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in North Dakota, it's one of the states that's really been impacted by drought, at least looking on the drought map. How does that really affect like that early November time period for you? Are you thinking about water? Are you thinking about, just concentration of deer around it, or what do you do there?
You got to think about water a little bit. It has been dry for sure, but like I've bounced all over eastern side of North Dakota this year. And that being kind of the prairie pothole region, you're typically not that far from a water source of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
It's not until you're getting out more, central and western North Dakota where you're probably going to want to focus a little bit more on water with it being as dry as it's been. But overall, the places I've been hunting, the water source is not typically an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Well, we have a big cold front looming right now. This week is like going to be a drastic change kind of across the country. Where we got kind of some hot temps in the earlier part of the week. And then, actually kind of, right there Thursday, Friday on some really good dates, we start looking at some cold fronts. Do you lay off of your prime spots for those just perfect days that we're looking forward to? Or do you go ahead and go hunt those things hard?
I typically hold off until I play the wind a lot. And I have a few spots where I know, like I can't really hunt here until the date is right and the wind is right. Mm-hmm. There's a set of dates and a very slim segment of wind that I can hunt. So I'm typically going to hold off and I'll hunt other stuff until I know it's going to be good.
Do you regard the moon much this time of year?
I can't say that I pay much attention to the moon. Mm-hmm. I figure it's the rut and I should be in the woods.
Yeah. I like it, man. Yep. What's the best date? What's when you're talking about the best date coming up, what's it going to be?
Historically, you hear a lot of people say the 7th. I'm typically just slightly later than that. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of that 10th through the 12th time frame.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
Yeah. But that's just me.
Mm.
Cool. So, in that kind of 10th through the 12th date range. So, next week or coming up in the next weekend or so, what are you going to be focusing on tactically or with the habitat, or what are you looking at to try to kill a buck?
Yep. I'm focusing on stuff that I know has does. Obviously there's going to be a few bucks locked down on stuff that time of year, but a lot of times if you can get into a doe group or get into a spot where does transition through, a lot of times you can find yourself in a rut ball. And even if it starts out where you've got young bucks that are doing a lot of the chasing or pushing them around, just all that activity I have found typically draws bigger bucks in. And they start to push those smaller bucks off, especially midday. If you can talk yourself into staying out longer, a lot of times that time of year, I might hunt way longer in the day, and then with that chance of killing something midday, early afternoon, and then I might go scout that evening instead of just continuing to sit, so I can find another ball of does that I can go hunt the next day.
Gotcha.
That's a bold move, Cotton. Hope it pays out for you. So
I know, yeah, it has in the past.
That's cool, man.
But, yeah.
I would like to shoot a midday buck one of these days. I haven't done it from a tree. On the ground, it's a little different game where you're moving around, finding them and stuff. But so as we look forward to, some really good dates like you're talking about there, if you had to give it a number between 1 and 10 of what you predict the buck movement to be like in the upcoming week, what would you give it?
Man, with the dates and the weather we're going to have, I think we're going to be, running that red line pretty hard, 8, 9, going into late into the week, early into next week, especially with just the temps are going to go from, what have been in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, all the way up until a couple days ago, dropping all the way down to lows in the single digits. So it is a very drastic change coming.
Man, single digits. That's not my favorite.
Yeah,
but I understand.
I saw a couple nights in the forecast where the low is going to be 3 degrees.
Ooh, yeah, I've been there before, but it's not the most fun hunting I've ever done. But
no, it's terrible.
Yep. Hey, but I appreciate you hopping on, Sam. Thanks for everything, and I'm hoping that you get the shot at a buck on the 10th or 12th there somewhere in your favorite date range. And
with any luck, it's coming.
Cool, dude. Well, we'll be talking to you soon, man.
All right, thanks, guys.
On the phone, we have got the Tundra Master, Tyler Friel. What's happening, man?
Oh, not too much. Just got back from my first fall whitetail bow hunt. So that's always fun.
Yeah, that's exciting, man. You actually were in Kentucky. We know as you as the guy who knows everything that we want to know about Alaska, but you've been down here in the lower 48 doing some whitetail hunting. How was the action?
It was slow. It was hot and slow. The deer just, there is tons of sign and some sign of, rut activity, but they just were not moving during the day too much. Yeah,
I got you. So for that first week of November, what were you kind of concentrating on as far as, your tactic there?
Well, I hunted 2 different spots, kind of an inside corner of some ag that on a big edge of a big wood lot, and another time right in the middle of a big wood lot on that where a couple ridges come together, just kind of a good funnel type country that should get a lot of traffic through, and especially if they're starting to chase or cruise for does, stuff that at least in my mind should work really well.
Yeah. So are you accustomed to hunting whitetails? I guess that's one of the things I should have asked you about, because I know you're from the lower 48, but you've been in Alaska for a long time, right?
Yep. I'm super green to hunting whitetails. I've seen it on TV a bunch, and it always looked like fun. But this was my first chance to really go bow hunt whitetails. So I tried to take the advice of the guy I was hunting with, and it was a great time. It was slow, but it was a great time.
What was the key? Like, what was the advice that he was giving you that he was hoping you would score on?
Oh, pretty much just paying attention and being ready to shoot. I think that first week in November typically is pretty hot action, and we're in spots where we're just ambushing them coming through, and just being ready and keeping your head on a swivel, sitting all day.
What's one of the things that seemed to translate to you hunting in Kentucky there compared to what you're used to hunting?
Well, the tree, animal movement, like the early morning, late evening seemed to be pretty good. That's just typical what animals like to do. The thing that translated for me is I do a lot of black bear and grizzly bear hunting out of tree stands. So it was nice. I like sitting in a tree and waiting. And so, I'm very comfortable operating out of tree stands. And so that was that translated really well. From how you system all the gear you want to be comfortable and hunt effectively.
Mm-hmm. You didn't have to get in the stand at like 1:30 a.m. for this one, though, right? It's kind of a little bit later in the day.
No, normally, I'm used to sitting all night rather than all day, so
Yeah.
that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Do you, if you were hunting again this coming week, what would you change or what would you do differently to have success? What do you think?
I'm not sure if I know enough about it to really say that I would change stuff. I would probably, the spots I was hunting were good spots. I think it was a good plan. Just the timing wasn't right, and I'm used to hunting animal, a lot of my hunting, I might not see an animal for days of hunting. So, I didn't know what to expect going into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I would really change anything about the method. I would just be persistent about it.
Yeah.
Cause I just think it wasn't lining up. My timing wasn't lining up with them moving in the daytime. And from what I hear, it can switch overnight too.
Mm-hmm. One of the best public land hunters I know, he hunts the same stand almost all season long, and he kills big deer. And he also says when the wind changes direction, you just turn around and look the other direction. And so sometimes that works. Looking forward, as you have kind of a tough week there. If you were to predict what you think deer movement's going to be like in the next week there in Kentucky, what would you say on a scale from 1 to 10?
I mean, I would say probably a 7. If it after all that hot weather, if they're like any other critter, they're progressively getting closer to chase. We didn't see a lot of chasing, but they're getting close. And after a string of weather that doesn't want to have that they don't want to move in, temps are supposed to drop. And I think the guys are already even yesterday saw deer moving like crazy. So I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be a good week.
Awesome, man. Well, Tyler, we really appreciate the report, man. I hope you have a great winter up there.
Yep. Thank you.
The report is good. It is out, and it is good, guys. It is the second week of November, and you could argue that this is better than the first week. It really, really is going to be good, especially paired with this weather. I'm excited about the reports we got from all these guys. If you heard earlier in the podcast, we did put down some nice Kansas bucks, and those hunts will be on the Buck Truck series on MeatEater coming up next summer. So be excited for that. I hope you're looking forward to it because we sure are. There are a couple things that y'all can check out if you need to just satiate some of that deer hunting stuff. Maybe you can't get in the woods until Friday or something. You need to read something or watch something. On the Element YouTube channel, there's a really cool pre-rut style hunt in Texas, but there is some rutty action. Deer answering antlers. They are getting after it. Also, there is a article on MeatEater by Tony Peterson about when to abandon your rut hunting plan. And then the Wired to Hunt podcast, Mark also has a just all-out rut podcast. I mean, you can't call it anything else, just rutty stuff. It's what we're all about right now. And you need to be considering all these rut tactics this week. It's time to get in those pinches. It's time to get after where those doe bedding areas are. It's time to kill a big, giant buck. This has been Rut Fresh. Keep it fresh.